So we'll be talking to the 2023 board calendar towards the end of the meeting, but we'll hear really tonight a lot about the New Haven facility from some of the team members who have been part of the design process, as well as other conversations and policy updates.
Thank you, Superintendent Bradley. Moving on into item 3A, the New Haven facility table team. I think that'd be New Haven staff as well as Mr. Pickett.
So we're doing it a little differently this month, since we are in New Haven, coincided with this conversation around the design process. We'll apologize, since we moved the meeting today, Tiffany did have a team that was ready to rock and roll, but some of them are still here, may or may not join together in this conversation. Tiffany will be able to get it moved.
So we're excited to kind of show you guys the updates that we've had. Several of you may have been here. We had a facility update meeting for our families a few weeks back. Several people kind of in the audience have been in and out to helping us think through what we would like to see at New Haven based on the needs within the building, what our teachers feel like that they need within the building. We had parents like Melissa Parrish is one, Nicole Peason for preschool. We also had Mary Bagwell, a STEM teacher, also New Haven alumni, and Casey Ayers, Josh Whitehouse, Cameron Johnson, who also has kiddos here as a parent that served on the committee, and then of course we had our architects join us and talk through what we feel like we need here at New Haven. So I'm going to hand it over to Jeff. And then we'll talk a little bit, maybe towards the end, about a couple of things. Like Mary's like, here's what I can tell you. This is what I'm so excited about. So when Jeff gets to those parts, I'm going to kind of interject and say, here's something Mary would like to talk through. And if you were here for that facility plan where we talked for our families, Mary was involved in some of those and talked to you guys about some of that as well.
So I think the last time I was here presenting, we were talking about the schematic design. So a few months have gone by, and we continue to develop the project. We've met with Tiffany and her team multiple times, and essentially just taking the project to the next step. We're basically at the design development phase of the project, and I think what we want to do now is just give you an overview of what we've been up to. So this project, many of you will remember that three main themes came to mind as we developed the project. It's community, identity, flexibility. And we continue through the project to ask the questions, how do we address those particular key points? And that was the driving theme. So with that, these three areas of the building were developed. What we're calling the arts wing, closest to town. The area we're calling Central, which is at the new entrance. And then the science wing, which has renovated media center and STEM lab. Major focus in the design about the access points, the corridors, and how as you move through the building, currently there's no real sense of place or arrival in the new wings that we've developed. And to do that, we created these slots of light, I would say, for interior to exterior views, and then overhead skylights in the corridors. You can go to the next slide. In addition to this kind of inside-outside thinking, we spent a lot of time thinking about the site itself. This plan is actually rotated 180 degrees. So the main road is at the top, and the current parking lot is across the street. But in this site plan, you'll see a major shift in the way the traffic operates around the site. Currently, out here today, you move through between the school and the gym, which creates a bit of a pedestrian safety issue. So this plaza allows for flexible community gatherings, better safe student access to the gym. With that, we have reorganized the way the buses work, so they come around the back of the school, buses and the drop off, and buses parking is in the front still, but basically removing that through traffic through the plaza. Anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, so I was going to follow up with a couple of things. So some safety things that have been brought up over years, obviously, is, like Jeff talked about, no like pedestrian areas around the building whatsoever, even coming out of the front of the building, whether you're a parent or staff. There is a crosswalk, but it is a road that is used with, actually what I just learned is lots of new residents being built back in here, so we have increased traffic on this road as well. So when we have car riding lines and those kinds of things back up. So the front, what we really started talking about too, is a place for families to access the front of the building and park on school grounds instead of having to cross the road to do so. And then again, that will also be a bus potentially or car rider ride. We may split those depending on numbers of car riders. Right now we average about 40, so it shouldn't be an issue. If we were to see an influx of that, we have the flexibility to be able to move some of those things. Yes, ma'am.
You've got to slow down. The echo in here is hard to hear.
Okay.
Slow down.
I'm a really fast talker.
I know it, that's why I'm asking you to slow down. Just a tad.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So the other patterns, again, like Jeff was talking about the bus, we did look at parking, making sure we had enough parking spots for the number of staff that we currently have. Also, how to not impact our soccer fields, making sure that they have access. We've increased, again, ADA access as well. For that, creating really boundaries for our kiddos to access the building. Currently, those don't exist either. Then we have separate playground areas for preschool, giving them access, and also giving our entire school access to an outdoor space, something that we don't currently have as well. There's a location that's just not really developed. So essentially, the big piece that teachers and families, I think, were talking through was definitely separating traffic from school and pedestrians, but then also thinking about buses, semis, those kinds of things. So we did lots of investigation around can a semi get through these areas, because I know a community member specifically kind of brought up like semis get lost and where the place they turn around. So just thinking about little things in a small community that you have to think about as well. So really it was about access, safety, separating different traffic patterns, whether it's people or vehicular.
Yeah, just before we move, one other comment here. This site plan starts to show the three areas that we talked about, the arch wing, so there's an intervention on the exterior as well, or improvements, I should say. The central area at the main entrance, again, exterior improvements, and then at the media center and the courtyard. So those three major wings also have exterior improvements to bring the inside out and the outside in. And then just to emphasize, in that corner, the preschool playground is up against the building. You'll see a rendering of that here in a few minutes. Okay. So really quickly, this plan is just obviously a blow-up of the plan that House developed. The arts wing with the music classroom on the end, art with some resource rooms between them, and then some breakout spaces along the corridor. And those breakout spaces typically in the plan have skylights to bring natural light in. And then the current entrance to the building is here. When you come in, you're just basically right in front of the restrooms, really no sense of arrival. So that's been moved to align with the corridor that goes to the other wing of the building. So a major improvement in this area with skylights and clear story windows, and also better access to the cafeteria. And as you move into what we call the science wing, major improvements to the media center and adjacent to the STEM lab. and then some breakout spaces. So all the purple spaces are spaces off of the corridor to give a variety of different learning spaces that are currently not in the school.
Yeah, so one of the other things I think that when you start looking at some of these plans too, something that we've talked about and we see is access to our classrooms and our spaces currently. The amount of space you have in hallways is very tight. You can't necessarily move two people down the hallway without, there's no place to stop and have a conversation, or for kids to break out, for you to get around others, for classrooms to transition during specials when multiple classes are going alternate ways. So some of these breakout spaces in the purple and moving and opening up classrooms, especially down in the art wing too, allow for those things and people to transition a little bit more effectively.
So this is a rendering as you come in the building. Right off of the vestibule, you'll come in and you'll get a more open lobby space with the cafeteria off to the left, and then a view down the corridor to the meeting center. So currently, like I said, when you walk in, you know the building, you get about 8 feet breathing space when you walk in the building. So here the attempt is to get a sense of arrival and a lobby. So the ceiling is raised and there's clear stories that allow light from above.
I would say with this too, when we talk about community as one of the things we continue to talk through, and we talked with City Hall and some community members about that too, getting access to potential places to have meetings and gathering spaces. The way we have this kind of structured is we could have access to the cafeteria for those purposes, and it still be closed off to the rest of the school, so those spaces could be used for different purposes. Sometimes we host different groups of people, or have in the past with Ms. Tessie, so those things are more functional as well.
So this is a rendering down the arts wing. So you get the arts classroom, foreground here, music in the background, and a resource room looking out to the trees to the front of the property. So again, what's happening here is this narrow corridor. There's a relief and a breakout space with a skylight. So currently, if you were standing here, really all you notice is the bathrooms, and you can't see out. There's no natural light. So again, these breakout spaces can be used for a variety of teaching. There's a market board here. Lots of things could happen. These resource rooms can be shared throughout the school, or they can be dedicated to the art department or the music.
I would say some of these things too provide flexibility when we're talking about structures in those classrooms, specifically art and music, having the flexibility for them to use both of those spaces at the same time. When you think about productions and plays and things like that, they typically collaborate, so making that space big enough for them to be able to do that versus moving to separate locations. When you have, like this week, we have kindergarten performances, 47 kids trying to practice those things would give us spaces to be able to do that.
This last view there was the classroom. It's the art room, but I think it's a good example of all the rooms in the building because we're not just touching the corridors and breakout spaces. We're really modernizing the entire building, both inside and out. So every space will be touched, new finishes, new paint, new ceilings, new windows. So it's a really major improvement to the building. So this is continuing down from the entrance to the media center. Currently, there's a pair of doors like this with a couple of lights in the door, and you see the stalls to the back end. So we redesigned this area, introduced some clear story windows and some natural light, and raised the ceiling, and then opened it up so that there's more transparency for the everyday activities. We introduced some garage doors to open up those walls into other breakout spaces off the corridor so that the school can use it for a variety of different learning occasions.
So examples would be broadcasting. We do a broadcasting team. We have kiddos who create all of those things. Annabelle got to start, and some of them, she's the only second grader, she said. But these spaces, again, collaboration between media center, and STEM lab, broadcasting, all of those things are flexible and kind of collaborate typically.
This is just down the corner a little bit more, showing how that corner is developing with the clear story windows wrapping this area. Again, to bring natural light into the building and really celebrate this moment, which a lot of people say when they get to this spot in the school, they get lost. There's no way to orient yourself. So the idea is to give a sense of place and an arrival point. So then now we're in the media center. It's really a flexible space, more of a multi-purpose space, as I was talking about. It could be used as STEM, it's actually just out of the view to the left. It's more of a STEM lab. This is more of a media center or library setting as it's shown, but the idea is it to be very flexible. And then there's, we're introducing windows to the courtyard off to the left there. Currently, you can't really engage the courtyard. And then there's major improvements out there as well, as you'll see.
And a lot of that furniture is flexible furniture, which is something that we found very beneficial, especially for our library or media area. All of ours are on movable, like rolling things so that we can get our access to our classrooms frequently. Instead of signing up for a library at one point, the library comes to you. So having spaces for that and making sure, again, all of those things are flexible so our kids have access at all times to all of the resources we have.
So we introduced that last slide just to talk about the exterior now quickly, and a major emphasis on the plaza and the multi-use aspects of that. Here are some terraced grass and concrete seating for outdoor classroom use in the plaza. That's restricting the vehicular traffic to make it more pedestrian friendly. The preschool playground is nestled up against the building, and then the courtyard, which will be a flexible classroom use as well. So just a view of the front, a complete remake of the front, a new identity, basically reskinning the building with new windows and modern materials. And then an emphasis on the new entrance that again lines up with the access of the building. And then the existing cafeteria is there to the left with new materials and new windows.
And that kind of shows where this would be like our car traffic versus the road, which is
Right.
very different right now.
That's right. There's also, just off to the right of that view is the new nurses clinic, which has its own entrance and dedicated parking for after hours or health events used. So this is just around the corner between the gym and the cafeteria. And today you drive through there, and the design is to restrict that, like you said, to be more of an extension of the school and address the safety concerns with pedestrians exposed to that traffic. And then again, this terracing function as outdoor classroom.
Or taking kids out to eat, we're really excited about that. We try to do picnics when it's nice, so this gives us access straight to the cafeteria, to a space for our kiddos to go out and eat.
So this is an elevated view looking back at that plaza, the gym off to the right, and this is the preschool playground that would have a direct connection to the preschool classrooms. In the early design, the playground was off just an extension or an improvement of existing playground areas, but we realized that the best preschool playgrounds are close to the classrooms. Anything else about that?
Anything you want to point out at all? We have water access here for exploratory play. I know that was something we talked about. Again, textures and different things, having access to be able to grow some of our other things here. Again, and then covered places, I think. So just a variety of different things between your traditional playground space, but also some exploratory things like, Burnham's Play-O-Scape.
Then it's a little dark, but this is the courtyard between the media center and the main front side of the building. So the idea is to have a flexible classroom space out there with, again, a water feature. Really some
That
light there.
was something Mary was very passionate about too. Again, having our kids be able to explore and practice those things, having access to water outside, running water. And then again, you have almost like a theater kind of look up here to where you can do some direct instruction and then break out to the other areas in those. And we've specifically talked about, again, our access to water and exploratory things around STEM as well.
So this, I guess that was our last slide. So that's back to the beginning. That's where we come from, design development, or we're at design development. It's been a great experience working with Tiffany and the community leaders and the local design, or the school design team. We're excited to have to be part of this.
I think we're all excited.
The one thing that I'm especially drawn to is what you've done with local craft. So I don't know the history behind this specific part of this campus, but I've always wondered why is it separate from the main part of the building? I know it was built afterward, but it's always been one of those questions in my mind. And I don't think that in the time that Frank Hall was on the school board and our passing across that I had the chance to really ask him about the history. So the fact that we're taking the time to pay attention to the best that we can and address something that probably should have been addressed when this gym was originally built is very positive. It's always bothered me, this little area in between here, and I think from what you said, it's what it's probably do as well just from the safety standpoint. So being able to kind of close that in, that would end up being both from a safety standpoint as well as a usability standpoint.
Yeah, and functional as well. So like currently buses drop at the top of the lot. Thinking about all of those things together, again, looking at against entry for gym would actually be like a concession stand so that we have a coverage for high school while they're waiting for the next bus. It's just a short amount of time, but if it's raining, it's an amount of time. So that kind of transition there, same thing with canopy from school to gym, and again, allowing community to be able to use, different partners be able to use this space at different points as well, which is kind of currently the way it is too.
Oh, okay, the thing I'm impressed about too is, just not for safety's sake, which is how my list are high, but the amount of light that is in that building now, because when you enter this, it reminds me of a dungeon.
There is no light, there's not much light. The windows, again, there are lots of classrooms that don't have access to light at all. Middle school, all of those do, but not elementary currently.
And I like having the little people, their playground right outside their door, right? Yes. Yeah, because you don't need them, we've heard the tales, somebody got left outside or somebody got, little one in Louisville or something. They've been known to be accidentally left outside in the big city, but I do like that. But the light impresses me because I noticed the skylights.
Teachers that was something, again, as small as like lots of outlets. We hear that like around, once again, with an older structure, outlets are not always accessible. And then lights, definitely access to those things.
Yeah, I like that. Good job.
I want to thank Jeff and taking the time to actually listen to Ms. Clark and her team and the parents about what they are looking for in the future of this for the students here at New Haven. I'm grateful that we have partnered with people like you, that you guys are very, very, very thoughtful in your design process and really looking at what's going to benefit our students the most. And very happy that you guys have come up with such a beautiful plan.
So So I'll definitely thank Jeff for that too, because he walks us through, gives us ideas, asks questions, and we take it back to all of our staff. We've had multiple times to say back, okay, here as a team, here are the things we're talking about. What do you guys think? What are we missing? What does this look like? And we've had different entrances moved for, again, the clinic or preschool playgrounds based on, preschool teachers knowing what's best for those kiddos. So there have been lots of back and forth with different groups of people to make some of these things come to life.
It's obvious you guys have put in time, and like I said, very, very thoughtful in the design. Great job.
Any other questions?
Appreciate your own time. Thank you both. So moving on into item 4A, guest comments, guest comment policies. So thank you for attending our Nelson County School Board. Thank you, Ms. and Ms. Parrish. Appreciate your time. Thank you for attending our Nelson County School Board meeting. Any person wishing to address the board may do so by following these rules. Individuals representing themselves are limited to 3 minutes. Individuals representing a group are limited to 5 minutes. We ask that you please step forward. There's a mic there. State your name and address, and if you represent a group, state the name of the group you are representing. First on the sign-up list is Melanie Rogers, and it looks like representing Self.
Hello. My name is Melanie Rogers. I live at 2264 Line Station Road here in New Haven. First off, I want to say I'm super excited about what just happened, or about this whole thing that just came about. That's the first time that I got to see it. Kind of invest a little more time in it. So I'm very excited, and I hope that my kids are definitely able to see that. So. And I'm hoping that this facelift is the beginning of any facelift here in our community. So I hope it's the start of something a little bit bigger. I'm here to just put in a few words towards the community campus. I'm not always able to make it to the meetings because of my work schedule and other commitments that I have. I personally sat on the site base here for 5 years up until recently. I've helped with allocations, master schedules, and in a school this size, it's definitely very difficult. I have volunteered countless hours in the schools and communities and will continue to do so. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm a pretty vocal person, but I don't usually do it on the microphone. Tonight I just want to speak towards our board members and our incoming board members. And I want to ask that as you all are taking in the information about the community campus, that you all do so with open ears. That you listen and that you learn. You don't just vote yes or no, because you're in support or lack thereof to West Bradley or the board. I'm currently a parent of a current 4th and 7th grader. I'm very invested in things that go on here at New Haven School and in our district. I'm always looking for opportunities for my children, both at school and in the community, that will help them grow both as students and in person, and as a person in general. The community campus, I feel, will bring opportunities to kids of all learning styles and levels. Advanced kids will be giving opportunities to grow beyond what small schools can provide. Kids with learning disabilities and behavioral disorders may be provided with more teachers that are trained in taking care of their needs, and small group sessions can be provided to help them grow in specific areas. All students will be provided with more opportunities that they are interested in. Extracurricular activities and additional electives will help kids be more invested in their academics by providing a reason, quote unquote, for them to come to school. Extracurricular activities like fishing, archery, and wrestling are just a few things that are not provided here, but may be easily added to the community campus. Classes such as Algebra 1, foreign languages, and many other electives in general will provide for each student, or will be provided for each student to take advantage of. Clubs like AG, Beta, and academic teams will also be more accessible to a greater number of students. Teachers will also be given opportunities to learn from others, as they will have larger groups to collaborate with, which will provide a better learning environment for all students.
Overall, the pros in the long run will outweigh the cons. The opportunities that will be available to help all students, the opportunities that will be available will help students find things they are interested in and provide a community of other students with common interests. So as each board member listens, I hope that you, over the next few months, take into all those considerations. Thank you, Lord.
Next on the list is Deb Olszewski, who indicates representing the group.
Hello, Deborah Chesky from Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm a representative of the group NC Fair. There'll be a lot of information for you to absorb tonight and in the upcoming days. I ask that you not blindly follow the information that you are spoon-fed, and just because something is on PowerPoint does not make it factual. I went over some of the numbers from the last meeting, and I found an error in the facilities fund that inflated the balance of $17 million. I mean, that's like a whole school project. So ask questions, do your research. Not everything is factual that is presented. Ashley and Jeff, she's not here. Thank you for serving the community in what is often a very thankless job. I know it takes hours and hours, and you put in many years, so thank you. And we have some important decisions coming up. I ask that you reflect on those decisions and decide if you want your legacy to be one where the community loves you or hates you. I often tell my boys as they leave the house on a Saturday night, make wise decisions. I ask that of all of the board members, as there are some very important decisions coming up tonight and quite probably the next 18 days. I'll end with some quotes that I felt were very relevant. One is from John Tanner. Organizational accountability is always and only a system that enables you to build trust with your primary stakeholders. Your primary stakeholders are members of the group without whom you would have no reason to exist. So remember, the families, the community, that's the reason you exist. Another one from Sherilyn Kenyon. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And one more from Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. It's the only thing that ever has. And last but not least, from our beloved Nancy Reagan, just say no.
Thank you, Ms. Olszewski. Up next, Dawn Thrasher, who indicates representing the group, Political Committee, Nelson County, America First.
I'm Don Thrasher, and today I just want to thank Board Member Jeff Dickerson. Jeff, I appreciate you, even though I don't live in your district for years, you've always returned my calls, and I just want to thank you for that. I appreciate it much obliged. There are people on the board that don't respond, even my own current District 4 representatives, so thank you. Today, the Nelson County Circuit Court Division 1, Judge Sims issued a temporary restraining order, restraining part of the agenda tonight. You all have been served, so you're aware of it. But citizens should not have to go to the court and take legal action to stop what you guys are about to do tonight. And I would ask in the future, you guys use your legal ability for what the public interest and what the voters want, not what David Jackie wants. Because, you know what, it matters. And people's voices matter, I know a lot of times, especially you, Mr. Jackie, you don't care what your people in your district want or even care about. And I find that very, very troubling. Have a good day, sir.
Thank you. Next on the list is Daniel Greenwell, who indicates he's speaking on behalf of himself.
Dave Greenwell, the meeting here from New Haven. I too want to thank you, Jeff. While we don't agree on the merger issue, I know you to be a good guy, and you stepped into a role, and it's not the most pleasant role. So thank you very much. And if you guys can see Ashley, she also stepped into a role, and tell her thanks as well. I know she's very time was short on the board. But there again, we do appreciate her doing that. So I do want to speak to the merger and to this proposal here today. For just, now, people need to understand that this is just a remodel of an elementary school. Okay, this is no longer going to be the middle school. And the people of Nelson County, of New Haven, this district, had a choice between Adam Dawson, which was for this, and David Norman, who wants to keep the school here. And overwhelmingly, by more than a 2-to-1 vote, by more than 2-to-1 vote, okay, when you understand that, major majority voted not to do this. We don't want this. I know there's a few people who want it, and they got very admirable reasons why. But the district does not want this. And not only does the district not want the merger, I would say that the whole county does not want this merger. Because there was another district, District 4, which is substantially different than this district. I know I've rehashed a lot of this. And it too, it loses nothing, it gains. And it too overwhelmingly chose to vote for someone not to do the merger. Because they had options, they had people they could vote for. Ashley. They could have voted for Ashley. But Ashley probably would have won, probably would have had an opponent if it wasn't for the merger issue. She would easily probably have won the re-election. But overwhelmingly, she was voted out. Good person, voted out. Over the merger issue, we're telling you. Yes, over the merger issue. It's not that. It's the merger. I promise you, it's the merger. But that's your opinion, and we disagree. Yes, I know you'll be a good guy, and we can have disagreements until we say, and I agree. So the district doesn't want this merger. Now, we can build buildings. New Haven right here. We love having new K-8 buildings, okay? Brand new building. It's had it. It's been on the list for years. Never got it. You know, Jeff Reddick is saying, but shake that on me. We need a new building. We need a new building. Honestly, not just some remodel, dusting up all the lead-based paint, stirring up all the asbestos in the building. Throw your kids in there. Go ahead, guys. Safety. Now, you want safety? That's not safe. That's long-term effects. Builds up over time, child after child, generation after generation. We don't need this. We don't want it.
Thank you. Next on the list is Steve Parsons. I think I'm reading that right, who indicates speaking on behalf of himself.
My name's Steve Parsons. I live here in New Haven. I basically don't say anything you said. Most everybody in this county does in one part. I know construction costs probably will be more than what you think. I'm a pipe fitter myself. Trust me, prices triple compared to what y'all think it is. I know for me, I just got my tax bill. I pay more for taxes on my vehicle than I do my actual vehicle registration. And for me as a citizen, I just don't want to pay for something that's not going to work. I was a former baseball coach for the middle school. There was issues there. I had a lot of parents complaining because we held practice time from 7 to 9 p.m. for middle school kids because we had to wait. There's a lot of considerations that need to take place. Now that they're taking place. Me and myself, I thank David Norman for running. Said I've talked to him on my front porch for about 45 minutes when he was campaigning. Amanda, I know Amanda. I went to high school with her older brother. I know she's going to do a great job. Take into consideration what everybody's done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Last on the list, I believe again, I'm reading this correctly, Joe Mattingly, who is here speaking on behalf of himself.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm here with my sign again.
Mr. Mattingly, if you would, name and address.
Joseph Larry Mattingly, 433 2nd Street, New Haven, born here in 1948, 74 years old. This is a community I love. I do want to thank you for the money you want to spend on the school over here. Would like a facelift to me, that's okay, I guess. We do facelift on our homes from time to time, but it does not reflect what you all say need to be done. Come up here and say we need better education and we're going to send the kids to Bardstown to get it. What I want to know is why all you people feel it's not over here 10 years ago. We've been suffering from this for many years on account of didn't want to spend the money on school teachers to come over here. Now you want to load our kids up and bus them to a new middle school over on the other side of the county. Might be good for some, but what about the community of New Haven, which is about to lose the middle school? So then it's undesirable for people to live here, move here from the cities and places because, well, they only got a 5th grade now. They don't have a full 8th grade school. And you all keep bringing up in our faces that we're wanting to deny certain students a better education. That's not true. We don't control it. You all do, though. And you haven't brought the education over here that New Haven people need, and neither have you done it for Boston and Bloomfield. And everywhere you go, that's what you all say. How can you people be against better education for our kids? Well, I'm not sure it's us. I think it's the leadership that needs to look us over and keep this school in New Haven and what education needs to be over here for higher curriculum, if I could say the word, and keep the kids better educated. The grounds over here is rock, dirt, soil, slate, just like it is in Bardstown. Those kids can be taught over here the same way. If the leadership will step up and say, you know what? Riding a school bus 16 miles, some of them going to be 25 to 30, spending that time on the bus. We could send these teachers over here and teach them in New Haven and in Boston and Bloomfield. And yeah, you all say, well, we might not have the money to do that. Well, I'm saying to you, some of your responsibility to find that money. You see? So don't blame other people out in the community trying to say we're going to deny some children a higher education. No, it's people right here.
Thank you, Mr. Mattingly.
Right here. Thank you.
So moving on to item 5 on the agenda, the monthly consent agenda. This consists of the monthly financial report, leaves of absence, minutes from previous meetings, fundraiser requests, as well as 2 overnight or out-of-state field trip requests, Thomas Nelson High School boys basketball, and a second one also for boys basketball. We've had all these items in our agenda packet to review. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Motion by Ms. Bowe. Second by Mr. Dickerson. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Moving to item 6A, personnel notifications. There is no action required on this one. This is informational items that the board acknowledges receipt of personnel notifications from the superintendent. Moving on into 6B, Healing Hearts Therapy Service Contract, Ms. Tucker.
Good evening. So first tonight, we've got an additional contract for mental health services that I have connected with a local lady who is able to give us at least 2 to 3 days a week to come into our schools to service students individually, as well as small groups, as well as some family counseling. So it's always nice to have local leaders, professionals, clinicians who are able to provide support and services for our students and families. So tonight, I'm just asking for your approval of a contract for Healing Hearts to be able to provide mental health support to our students.
Any questions for Ms. Tucker on mental health services in this contract?
We're talking about in money-wise.
So just like what we do with Astra, Communicare, other providers, they're able to bill students' insurance as well as Medicaid. So as far as costs for Nelson County schools, there is none. It's all for students' insurance.
Okay, I just want everybody to know.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Okay, so then we need a motion to approve the Healing Hearts Therapy Services contract as presented.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Dickerson, second by Ms. Bowman. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Moving on into 6C, WHAS Crusade for Children grant application.
Thank you. So yet again, it's that time of the year for us to apply for the WHAS Crusade for Children grant. We know that Crusade is an annual contributor to Nelson County schools, and we want to continue to think of ways that we are contributing back to them. This year, I would like to use the grant application to help supplement and assist for the salary of 2 music therapists that we have right now in our buildings. IDEA ARP grants allowed for 2 music therapists, national board certified, to be at Cox's Creek Elementary as well as Foster Heights Elementary. And I have observed those music therapy sessions as well as others throughout the district. We have nonverbal students attempting to say their name. That speech therapist I worked for years. So having an additional outlet and facet of mental health and well-being services through music therapy, whether it be helping with behavioral challenges or de-escalation or even just verbalizing and communicating, it's been a beautiful process, a beautiful support and service for our students, and something that we want to continue to have for our kids here in Nelson County Schools. So this year, I'm just asking for your approval to use the application for WHAS for the salaries of our music therapists.
Any questions for Ms. Tucker? So I've got just one question myself. I know historically the WHAS Crusade Children grants, whether it's ours or the ones that I've seen parts of the city schools receive, is usually in for materials, playgrounds, special needs bus, etc. This here is for personnel. There's no, I mean, it can go across into personnel.
Yeah, so it's definitely an applicable section that we've always had the availability to use for. We've never chosen that option. Lots of districts across the state and like regional area have.
Okay.
So this is something that definitely seems appropriate for the services right now.
Okay, just a new approach that I haven't seen before, just want to make sure that it's allowed, grant allowed.
Yes, yes, sir.
If there aren't any other questions, then we need a motion to approve the WHAS State Children Grant application as presented.
I don't have a question, because it's not new. I mean, I've seen other schools in KSBA, we talk about these kind of things, and it's not new, but it's so new, invented-wise for elementary and
To have music therapists? To have a music therapist?
Yes.
Oh, it's great. I mean, you see music therapists in hospitals and in health clinics and settings, but seeing it as an educational setting to support our students is really powerful. Something we're excited to offer our kids.
And I want to make that motion.
Okay. Motion to approve by Ms. Berry.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dickerson. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
I think you've got a brief reprieve here till 6D grant acceptance is Ms. Arnold, and then I believe we'll see you back.
Yes, sir. So I'm bringing before you tonight two grant acceptance. So I visited with you at the last board meeting and shared that we were applying for career technical education grants to be able to showcase our career technical education and collab programs during the legislative session and during the Kentucky School Boards Association. So we received notice 2 weeks ago that around 34 schools received this grant, and we are 2 of those 34. So I think we're the only district in the state that will be showcasing 2 of our programs. So it will be the Bluegrass Aerospace Experience and our Health Science Collab. So this grant pays for the displays, graphics, handouts, all the materials that will be shared, and we will have students and our leaders taking part in the celebration February 21st at the Capitol, and I believe February 24th at KSBA. So asking approval of these 2 applications.
No questions, no questions.
The 2 grants, it sounds like it covers a good chunk of it, but I mean, like transportation, those things we've got.
Yes, it's allowed to pay for transportation, any travel costs, substitutes. If we have teachers out of the building traveling with the students, then it provides for the displays. So students have been engaged in the design of the displays and what they want to showcase about the programs, because that was part of the application, how students are helping create that design.
I think this goes along congruent with the audience being powers that be, ones with money at stake, know and believe and trust the wherewithal that we have in this county, that we should have just continues. So just another instance of thanks so much, very proud.
So then I would need a motion to accept this grant as presented. Motion by Ms. Berry, second by Ms. Bowling. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. So moving to 6E, grant application, Ms. Tucker.
Sure, so a couple more grants that Ms. Lee asked me to present tonight, 2 great opportunities for our district again. The United Way grants us annual funds working with our local FRIS. They come in, local FRIS work with all of our schools to say what support is needed at New Haven, at Austin, at Bloomfield. They work with local leadership in order to place money and funds back in our FRIS systems that go directly to our families. So the United Way grant is just allowing us to apply for use of those funds for each of our schools to be supported with the FRIS program. That's grant 1. The second grant is a federally competitive grant as we think about the expansion of mental health services for our schools. This allows us to have interns. So we think of graduate students who have master's levels who need that internship year to receive their full clinician license. It allows us to have connection with those programs of interns to have that mental health support in our schools. So annually, we're looking at around 10 to 12 interns. So when we think about expansion of mental health services, that's potentially 2 mental health therapists per school in our district, just allocated per school. So when you think about what that wraparound service looks like, it also supports dual credit opportunity for our students who are interested in the mental health field. So it's working through that coursework to say, what do students in Nelson County schools, if they're interested in mental health services, what do dual credit options look like in those courses? And that grant application will allow us to do that. So
The mental health one, whenever you talk about the intern piece, would that be similar to, not exactly the same, but similar to like student teaching? That's one of those last steps during that master's program.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before that student then is identified as you are certified to provide these services.
yes, 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 sir. So just asking for approval to apply for both of those grants.
I just want to really quickly mention the FRIS programs in Nelson County. If you have not spoken to our FRIS leaders, I would encourage you to do that. These people do amazing work for our students that goes completely under the radar. Stop and talk to them just one day. Stop by the office, stop by the school. Listen to how many people's lives they touch every day in our schools. I can't say enough about the people that work in our first departments. They do amazing work, and like I said, it's completely under the radar. People don't even know that it's going on unless you have listened and been inside the schools. You're not inside the schools, which again, I would encourage you to do that as well, because a lot of the decisions that are made at these tables are because we're in the buildings. And we listen to the people in the buildings, and those people right there, we need to listen to more.
It's interesting what you make during the pandemic. I know the technology offices, so I see Mr. Arnold over there. I know that I think the technology office here, as well as many in the central part of the state, relied upon the FRISC staff to help identify students that did not have internet at home, didn't have access to those technology services, so that you all can get out to those families. So, sometimes they're the ones that really do understand what the heartbeat of what's going on in school is.
I can't even share. I mean, just looking, we probably need to come and just present one day, because the work that they are doing is undeniable, the heartbeat of some of our schools and some of our families. And if it wasn't for these ladies, they would, they would have food. You know, there's things that they do, they're just amazing.
It's one of the few pieces of the original Education Reform Act that still exists after all the political things that have happened through the years. So we've got these two grants here then. We would need a motion to approve the grant applications as presented.
I make a motion.
Motion by Ms. Bowen. Second by Mr. Dickerson. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Ms. Tucker. Item 6F, Cats Offered Assistance, Superintendent Bradley.
This is an annual item. The number does change. But essentially, each year, the Kentucky Department of Education allows for a technology match this year. That number is $49,482, which means that the district wouldn't match that technology funding. Obviously, we do more than match that number in Nelson County schools. This is just a formal opportunity for us to move that matching funds forward.
And this is just the first offer. There'll be a second one that comes out of spring. So then we need a motion to accept the Cats Offered Assistance in the amount of $49,482 to be matched equally at this time. Motion by Ms. Perry. Second by Ms. Bowen. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Moving to 6G, corporal punishment policy update, Ms. Case.
Hi. So
And
back,
Ms. Case, I know you may want,
okay, I'm
you've got the teacher voice, but for everybody in the room.
So back in June, when the policies were reviewed and updated, I think just in an oversight, this policy was not reviewed at that time. So our corporate punishment policy does model after KSEA's policy, which is in the Nelson County schools. We do not administer corporal punishment, so we're just looking for approval on updating the policy.
Policy of the matches practice for the last 30 years. This is just a bit of formality. Didn't make corporals don't kill.
So as policy is first reading, then a second, or after first reading, it becomes policy?
Oh, we can review it again in January.
So there will be a second reading here, but I just want to make sure that we have clarity on that. So then we will need a motion to approve the corporal punishment policy update as presented. Motion by Mr. Dickerson. Second by Ms. Bowen. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Ms. Case. 6H, challenge teams and comprehensive school improvement plan. Mr. Martin and Ms. Arnold.
So we want to take a few minutes to update you on our next Gen challenge teams. So on November 29th, we had our kickoff meeting for our next Gen challenge teams. And I've heard a lot of people over the past several months, as I sit through board meetings, say the community has spoken. Well, I think the community spoke on November 29th. When we had over 100 people show up at Samuelsville Airport and ask to be a part of our challenge teams and to really start exploring the question of what benefits do we want to provide our students. So these challenge teams are very much focused around students, and I want to highlight, not so fast, Mr. Martin, go back. We have a student here, Harrison, who we met at the kickoff of our challenge teams, and we also met Harrison's mom, and they took time at the beginning of the challenge team to talk about what benefits they wanted Nelson County Schools to provide Harrison, who is currently in preschool. So it was great to have them be a part of this kickoff meeting. The challenge teams are focusing on 5 areas. You'll click it for me. And we have asked existing board members and our incoming board members to be a part of these teams. And really, each team exploring benefits. And then as we talk about benefits, if you can hit it again, once we identify benefits we want our schools to provide our students, then we get into, so what does success look like as we talk about these benefits? So how do we measure the success of Nelson County Schools? Knowing that standardized testing could be a part of that measurement, but what other benefits do we want to provide our students as we think about the future? So we have some more pictures just kind of showing you our group that was there, the discussions. Many of our teams broke into smaller groups to start the discussion. And I take you back, one of the main reasons we chose to explore challenge teams was really around the vision of the Kentucky Department of Education as they talk about the future of accountability. And it takes us back to the quote that we've looked at numerous times as we make connections to United We Learn, which is the vision the Department of Education is moving toward as we think about deep learning experiences and accountability for our students. So we actually have had the department reach out to us. They're wanting to feature some of this work through their statewide networks. And we have a video provided by Lou Young, who is chair of the Kentucky Board of Education. So I hope this works. It didn't work the night of the event, so hopefully it'll work.
Hello, Nelson County. My name is Lou Young, and I am the chair of the Kentucky Board of Education. I'm joining you for a few minutes today to commend you on the work that you're doing there in Nelson County as challenge teams. I know that your work aligns really closely with our bold new vision for teaching and learning in Kentucky called United We Learn. United We Learn casts a vision around 3 key ideas. First, developing vibrant and meaningful learning experiences for every learner across the Commonwealth. Secondly, it's built on a foundation of innovation, especially as it relates to high-stakes assessment and accountability, and how we can engage communities in the work of redesigning assessment and accountability. And thirdly, is that plank related to community engagement, which is exactly what you all are doing in Nelson County, modeling the way for other districts across Kentucky. Engaging communities around what matters most to you, how you want to hold yourselves and your schools accountable for teaching and learning in the best interest of the children of Nelson County. Thank you for the work you're doing today and for engaging in this important work there at home. Have a great day.
So our next challenge team meeting is going to be January the 12th. It's going to be at Nelson County High School, and we look forward to having you all there. We've encouraged additional community members to come to the table and explore these challenges. So now, Mr. Martin is going to talk a little bit about our district improvement plan and how that aligns to some of the work of our challenge teams.
So these few slides really kind of outline the process that we took in terms of conducting the CDID. So Ms. Arnold really spoke a lot about the challenge teams, and the goal is to get the continue to leverage community to really identify those questions, what benefits do we want to provide students and families. And then the next question of what questions do we need to ask to determine how well we're going to identify those benefits. And then, of course, the data comes in to really let us know what our current reality is. And the data dashboard is going to continue to house that conversation. It's going to give us a really good pulse on what is our current reality, what's working well, what's not working, where do we need to establish our priorities. And in terms of this process, the local needs assessment really drives the CDIP and what you identify your plan needs to be to continue to improve. So, based upon our needs assessment and based upon, again, collaboration with local schools and community, we really identified these 3 focus areas as we think about priorities inside the district, inside our schools. And those are instructional excellence and learning design, student pathways to success, and community building and culture. And part of the CDIP, they asked districts to identify 7 goals and 7 plans per se, and you can see how those 7 goals fit really nicely into our priorities. Ultimately, our goal is to continue to build systems and common language that obviously improves student achievement. So, crafting this document, you guys have access to this. This is really the process that we assume. These district representatives continue to work with local schools. Here are just some of the teams that they collaborate with as they align back to the CDIP goals and help them craft that document. But really, this is just it's an annual process where the board has an opportunity to review the CDIP and ultimately approve that. So I come to you asking approval of our CDIP for next school year.
So I've asked if there are any questions from the board on either one of these, whether it's what Ms. Arnold shared about the challenge team, work with that, or what Mr. Marshall was just sharing about the CDIP and addressing those needs.
I just want to make a comment about the challenge teams. It was very exciting to actually have a student in our group who is really engaged in the work that's going on in the district. I think he was a junior. Is that correct? Or was Casement? He was in our group. And he was just really excited to actually be at the table. And I think we've talked before about how important it is to actually have students in a conversation. And like I said, he was just excited to be there and share with us how he sees the challenge teams really going to be a benefit for the students to also know what's going on in the district. And it was exciting. I'm excited to continue that work for sure.
If it was the student that I'm thinking about, I think he is at Thomas Nelson, has a sibling at Thomas Nelson, and another sibling at Foster Heights, and that youngest sibling was also a Virginia. So that's one of those families that spans across many grades that spend time together.
I'm excited.
So if there are any other questions or comments, then I would need a motion to approve the CDIP, Comprehensive School Improved District Improvement Plan, for the 2023-2024 school year as presented. Motion by Ms. Bowen. Second by Mr. Dickerson. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Ms. Arnold, and thank you also, Mr. Martin. Moving into section 7, next is strategic decision making. All these items are going to be for informational purposes only. The first item, though, 7A, Thomas Nelson Community Campus construction bids, and that will be led by Mr. Cordell.
So as it states here, it's informational only tonight. But Jim will give us a little context on the bidding process that we go through, as well as talk through the bids for Thomas Nelson Middle School League, also known as Thomas Nelson Community Campus.
Ms. Arnold.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bradley. Give you a little bit of update on what's been going on, what Codel's been up to. We've been working side by side with Stephen and his team throughout the and Mr. Bradley throughout the design team. Weekly calls, but basically our function has been for three purposes, and that's schedule control, budget control, constructability, quality control. Steve and his folks have done a miraculous job, I think, on design. And we work together with them, you know, looking at material availability, keeping on schedule, making sure what's designed is constructible and where we can get out of the bid. So the design is complete. We advertise and broke job packages, making sure everything is covered in bidding documents once, not twice, not 0 times. A pretty tedious process. We turned out our finished product at the same time as the design team to keep things moving. So we did advertise the project, spent lots of hours on the phone, email blasts, social media, getting the project out to bid. Today's current environment is it's a process. It's normally we've got bidders phone out to bid. Actually have to really get out and beat the bushes. We got good coverage for the current market, not great coverage, but good coverage. No real surprises. Bids came in higher than what we like, but really very representative of what's out there right now. So we have provided those bid tabulations for you. A couple of single bid packages that we're not proud of, but we have gone back, talking with the other bidders that were looking at, said they were bidding. We compared the numbers that we got to what we heard from the other bidders and from what our estimator put together on budget-wise for those packages. But bottom line is we feel real good about the numbers we got, even on those couple of single bid items. And I think we've discussed those with the design team. Both Steve and his team, Codell, are comfortable with what we put out in front of you. But again, for information purposes only, we'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Dell, or maybe if you would like to have questions that go for Stephen about anything?
Other than the receipt of the information was less than 20 hours ago, 24 hours ago, or something.
Yeah, so it's a lot to, I mean, I had to put some more manpower towards just getting, be able to put anything in front of you. Steve and his folks done the same thing, so kind of drinking from the fire hose is a lot to put in front of you, there's a lot to put in front of us. We have completed our review, but realize you all haven't had really much time to digest. So,
Speaking globally around prices, Jim, we've talked a little bit, I've talked to Mr. Greenwell in the audience a number of times for the last year about prices. It looks like while prices have stabilized over the last 6 months-ish, in general, prices are 100% increase over 7 to 10 years ago. And looks like at least 50 to 60% higher in some cases before pre-pandemic. And just depends on the things. Some things are, as an audience member shared, 100% or 200% more, depending on like fire protection, some of the things we talked about. clearly the budgeting process that KDE uses in the square footage in any DFP processes grew out of date very quickly. And if you think about what you've learned over the past couple of years studying this since the pandemic and what you see happening over the next couple of years, can you speak a little bit to that? As you know, no one's comfortable paying $400 a square foot when we used to pay $175 and $210. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I'm going to tell my age a little bit. I can remember when we were under 100, yeah, we're having to watch costs daily. And it's a challenge. You know, I get a lot of questions on should I wait for costs to go down? And I've been doing this a long time. Construction costs have done this over time. You know, we might see a slight correction, but we've not seen anything but gradual going up. So steel prices have settled down a little bit, come down a little bit. Mechanical, electrical equipment are real killers. They've doubled in the past 6 months. Do I hope? Do I have a crystal ball? No, none of us do. Do I hope things have settled down and don't grow anymore? Yes. Do I feel that they will? I think if we see growth, it'll be slower. We're here, mechanical electrical people, in January, we're looking at numbers. I will say this, you average it for 60 days, so there's no danger of that, of those changing in the next 60 days. But I do think things have stabilized a bit. Can I sit here and guarantee it? No. Can anybody sit here that does? I don't see how they can be true. None of us really know. But the lumber settle down. If the mechanical, electrical equipment costs will stop rising, honestly, I think we can see some correction. I hope that answers your question. It's kind of an unknown.
I mean, what Mr. Dickerson was just saying too, I mean, that's a pretty quick turnaround. We've just got a bunch of numbers from. And the other piece, and I didn't mention this at the beginning, Ms. Holling said, we all recognize this in here, message earlier today that she is under the weather, so I assume it's Kentucky Pride. I think one of the practices that has always been of this body politic is big decisions. We want to have 5 full members to make those decisions. So it's good that this is informational for us tonight, that it gives us an opportunity to kind of digest and dig into it a little bit deeper.
Big decision, there's really no rush. We knew this was going to be a lot. That's why we put the 60 days good on the bid. So you've got time, and prices can't go anywhere. But just know this. Codell and your design team have done their due diligence, are comfortable with what's there. How the board wants to proceed, we're ready to cooperate in a formal fashion, as you also do.
We appreciate all the inputs.
Thank you.
The board is charged with looking long-term vision and to go through these exercises and prudently weigh some options. And there's nothing with all special meeting in a couple of weeks or whatever prudent. So
Sure. Well, we appreciate being included, and again, we're here to accommodate in formal fashion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate it. Moving to 7B, revised VG1 for the Thomas Jackson Community Campus, again, informational purposes only. Mr. Ward.
So this is really full transparency, explaining costs and what that looks like. Tonight it just allows you to look at those costs and evaluate those costs. I think it's also, as we look at New Haven's project tonight, it allows us to talk about if this is the trend we currently see in costs, here's where we feel like the range for New Haven's current project could fall. So, Stephen, can you just summarize the number the bids came in at, and then as we go further, I can explain what that would cost in terms of the overall project.
Sure. So if you look at your presentation, if you go back to the previous slides, you'll see the breakdown of all the bid packages that came in. The total for all bid packages together with all of the pieces that Codell and Studio Paper recommend was $24,617,000, just over that. What this agenda item is when you get to a point of taking action on the bids, if you were to approve the bids, the next piece of action would be to revise the BG1 to match it. That's how KDE would require that process be done. So you have to actually take action on the bids first as a totally separate action, and then you can revise the BG1. So there was some benefit in the bid packages. One of the things that Codell did was allow an option for contractors to bid in combination of bid packages. So we saw some benefit in some interiors pieces and in the mechanical and plumbing being bid together. Those where contractors took that option to bid in combination, they were low in both cases.
So the total construction cost is $24,617,240 based on the current bids. Just to give some context to the board, that's about 20% higher than we were a month-ish, 2 months ago. I think too, look at the original Thomas Nelson High School. The project was bid out in 2009, 2008, 2009. And by comparison, that project was nearly the same price. Is that right?
So that's
a little less without the auditorium.
The phase one job, which didn't include the cafeteria or the south classroom wing, was I think, $17 million.
The total project was, the auditorium combined was more like 23, yeah. And that was with the prevailing wage, which is also a different context, but which also added the cost. I share all that to say, this middle school wing currently costs the same amount as the rest of the high school. That's a 13-year shift, obviously. Most of that's happened in the last 4 or 5 years. But just something to know as we look at the current reality of construction. So.
Any questions or anything maybe the board would like to have Mr. Ward explain a bit further, or maybe go back and get a little bit more info on?
I think it's important to also note that Stephen one thing that Stephen's team does really well because of their experience is they understand the constraints of the budget and also the needs of the community table. There were ways to get this project cheaper, right? Significantly cheaper. For example, the field house and the gymnasium could have been cut significantly. Other components of the building could have been cut. But those are all things that were really important to everybody that was a part of the process. And it's very difficult to ignore those needs as we think about the future. But I think the other reality is you guys did a lot of work to cut costs with Codell by looking at certain materials and items that they felt like could save a few $100,000 here, a few $100,000 there, which had I say that to say this is not an elaborate, highly ornate building. And still the cost per square foot without the overall with the earthworks package is $402 a square foot. So just giving some context. Anything you want to add to that, Stephen?
much more than what Jim already said. That, I mean, this, as a per square foot cost, is one of the most expensive projects we've done, but it's actually simpler than a lot of them, so it really is just a function of the construction.
Right. I mean, I remember at the time, and you may remember this, Mr. Raker, who was on the board 10, 12 years ago. We did some comparisons between Thomas Nelson High School and Boyd County High School. And the dollar per square foot was a huge difference for what we were able to get here in Bardstown versus in Ashland or Boyd County High School. Of course, a lot of that also has to do with what's the ground line. Of course, you get up in Ashland, if you've ever been there, I mean, you don't build on flat land, you make it flat land to build. So I think, again, this is maybe a little bit of the side of the times here, but we need, you know, again, have more time to digest and figure out what's going to be the direction. Thank you.
The only thing I'm going to say is, when you're talking about $24 million, you're talking about saving, no offense, $100,000, to me, that's nothing. You know, we're talking about $25 million. And I was there yesterday, as you well know, and I was floored. I mean, when that came out, I'm going, oh, really? But $100,000, while it's $100,000, and even if you say $200,000, it's still only $200,000 compared to, and we may need, you know, it's just, I was floored.
I think what you're getting at there is that you can say $200,000, but what does it take away from the facility? Which is something that was a non-negotiable from those community roundtables that, you know, we wanted this, kind of like back, again, 12 years ago with Thomas Nelson High School. It was, we won an auditorium also for that high school. We had to wait about 2 years, but we were then able to do it successfully.
Thomas Nelson High School was probably the cheapest project per square foot built since that time period. Nothing's been as cheap. It's never been replicated. It was all a matter of timing.
Appreciate it, Mr. Ford. Thank you, sir. Moving to 7C, New Haven Elementary Design Development, Mr. Pickett. Of course, we heard Ms. Clark and Mr. Pickett share some of the work that's been done so far. So this is going back to this same campus we're at right now.
Yes.
So we wanted to be able to talk about money here as well. As we look at New Haven, one of the key pieces is thinking about potential costs, and for the BG3, is that prediction currently? I think based on the current bid at Thomas Nelson, I would ask, if we look at the BG3, does that imply a potential 10 to 20% increase window on this? And I don't think we know the answer to that yet, but I think it can be assumed that that's plausible. So, Jeff, we look at, I think, two, understanding, importantly, as we think about New Haven driving the original conversation and cost on this project, 40-ish% of the overall cost is the re-engineering of the entire building, right? Which is about a little over $4 billion. And that's a big part of the conversation with all the architects, construction managers, is engineering, electrical, plumbing, all those things that go into HVAC systems are the primary driver. So the BG3, Jeff, if you want to just kind of summarize overall?
Yeah, starting at the top, site development is $1,466,000. That's an emphasis on the plaza and improving the vehicular circulation, and the pedestrian circulation, the playgrounds, and really touching the majority of the site to provide those amenities. Then skipping down, we've got the HVAC line 3 there, which is about $2 million for air conditioning, the HVAC. And then plumbing at $276,000, and then electrical work at $1.8 million. And then that leaves the general construction at $5.2 million. That includes the general conditions for the contractors, all the architectural components. So that's where the building image would be focused in that amount of money.
So the overall projected cost of the is 10.8 million. Would it be safe to say the window at this point in time falls somewhere between $10 million and $13 million in general? Jim's not going to say guarantee this, but I think based on the 20% window we saw, currently in the current design, we're looking at 10.8 to 13 million-ish dollars as a projection.
One thing I'll say is that we've already been working with Jim and his team. Then beyond this point, we would even work closer with them, just like Steve and his team. So if you want to talk about how we've gotten over that.
Yes, sir, to answer your question, I believe we'll be under that 13, but 10.8 is probably just a little bit wide. I'm going to say it'll be between 11 and 12.
The reality of the estimating is they're going based on bids from yesterday, right? Part of that is the cost to adjust. This project is a little bit smaller because it's a remodel, but we just talked about $402 per square foot. This square foot number for construction costs, is it $325 to $330? So yeah. I just didn't know that number. So this is a remodel with significant site development. An additional HVAC, I mean, totally re-engineered for the next 30 to 50 years. $330 per square foot, just to give some context. Now, there's been some conversations. I know I was talking to an audience member talking about building a new school in New Haven. And I think it's important that as we look at that, important to be transparent about the numbers. We don't know what the new school costs because we're not designing a new school. But as you look at rebuilding the same square footage with a cafeteria, a gymnasium, and those things, I think it's safe to say we're probably between $35 and $40 million, just based on all the context. At the same time, we know that. Right? I think that's just generically a window of time thing. That's what it could cost. We originally projected about $25 million for a new school in New Haven. Those numbers were way low. I just wanted to give some context and look at the numbers today for a remodel versus a new building, because you are re-engineering everything, you are raising the ceilings, you are doing some things that way.
Well, Stephen's worked on projects through the years with Foster High Foundation, Thomas Nelson County High School, the addition that we did there. Of course, I know that some people will ask, well, why is it that New Haven has continuously been that school that has never had anything done to it? And that's why I talked to Mr. Hall in the past. I've talked with Mr. Hall in the past, and it's been that every 4 to 5 years discussion. How do we do what's needed to be done for the New Haven school and for that community? And I know in the past, some of the challenges were bonding capacity. I mean, the work that needed to be done just to even bring New Haven up to what is considered to be a CARE compliant school. You know, the administrative suites, the SBDM conference room, the secure vestibule, and all of those to me are things that are just kind of surface things, not really getting at trying to help make a positive impact on instruction for students. Even those were $4 to $5 million. And the body capacity just had not been there. So this isn't something that, this board as a body politic, or even 5 years ago or 15 years ago, has said, well, let's just kind of keep on kicking the can down the road. It's been a 30-year issue that we've been trying to do for the New Haven school, and this is as close in an actual action timeline that we've been able to get. We talked about we'd love to have a new school in New Haven. I think there might be some challenges getting approval to build a new school. based upon student numbers. A lot of these types of decisions end up being out of the hands of the body politic of the school board, that we can be told yes or no, someone higher up the food chain. And hopefully, as we continue to dig deeper into this, and again, we're not hoping anything to numbers, but as we dig into this, we can finally, after 30, 40 years, do something that has been needed to be done, even something as simple as what I was bringing up to Ms. Clark. We've talked about this gym being separate from the main body of the school for years. We've wondered why it was done that way. Who knows it was done that way? But trying to make sure that it's a much more safe campus environment for the students and families here. Some of what we saw you present earlier on was some of the schematics of the layout. So I don't know if any other board members have any questions or need anything for clarification from either Mr. Pickett or Mr. Fidel.
The questions, just observations. Can say again, reiterate. Well, it's happy to see the prioritization for Southern Nelson County. And it's the infrastructure team. We're getting much more than just new skin. It's totally engineered, HVAC, all of the integral portions are essentially a new facility. So in addition to all of the benefits for students and learning atmosphere.
Well, I even, now on that note, I even think back, you say new facility, I think back to something that a member of the LPC said, build a new school and won't change the challenges that I'm still faced with. And I paraphrase that. So very thoughtful work has gone into this design. The next step as a whole board body politic is to figure out what are the directions that need to be taken. So, and thank you, Mr. Pickett. Thank you, Mr. Fidel.
Thank you. Anything else?
This is Stephen.
So moving into next item, which is item 7D, bus and maintenance garage construction. Again, informational item. Mr. Ward.
So this is the same, really, we just want to update on costs as we look at all the different projects. This project uniquely coincides with the Gov Center and the Nelson County High School wing, or new Nelson County High School.
Yes, so what we're bringing tonight, you saw schematic design of the bus maintenance facility last month. We've reached the design development phase of the project. Partly it's because it's a fairly simple building, so it moves faster than some of the other projects. And it's actually gotten more simple than what we presented to you before. In light of a lot of the costs we've been seeing, we did make a decision over the past month that we would look at reducing the structural costs of the building. It was always going to be a pre-engineered steel building, but we were putting a brick veneer on it so that it corresponded to the buildings around it. What came to us from the structural engineers once they started working was that it was going to have a completely redundant footing and foundation system for that brick veneer. So we've modified it so that that's no longer part of the project. What we really were looking to maintain is the functionality that we've been talking to Mr. Marchese about. It will still be a 5-bay facility. We'll still have all of the services and equipment that the bus maintenance team would need to replace the building that they've got, which is about a 50-year-old building. So I'll walk through it a little bit. But this is just a view. This is north of the current academy building, and it would be attached by a covered walkway. It would be up against the driveway, and then all of the bus parking would be to the west. You can go onto the site plan next. All of the bus parking would be organized to the west side of the addition. Here's the addition. Here's the academy, and the walkways connecting it. It would be space for 50-plus buses during the regular school year. And in the summer, they would be able to get all of the 75 in this area. It's set up so that there can be power down the middle for the block heaters. And as I described last time, there are 3 bays that are single entrance and then 2 bays that are drive-through. So you can come from either side of the facility and come back into the lot. The drawings have been modified to reflect the removal of the brick. We have gotten all of the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing consultants going. The site is much more developed than it was when we presented the schematic design. So we're at the jumping off point. Once we get to a point where you can review this for design development, we can start construction documents. And it's probably about 2 months of construction documents. Again, it's fairly quick for this building. Also in the board packet is a narrative of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing at design development. They don't prepare drawings yet. They're really describing the system and how it will operate for all of the various systems in the building. And this does come with the revised VG1 and VG3 at design development. So the total construction cost is just under $3 million. As we're seeing it right now with the brick having been removed. And the other costs on VG1 are the related costs, contingency fees, the financing fees, and design fees. Geotechnical, a lot of these have been undertaken already, so the geotechnical investigation, we've done some of that, we've done the surveying. So all of those documents are attached in your packet as well.
So I know on this one here, this is a dependency on another one of the big projects that is within the facility plan, and that is the other center. You mentioned that a while ago, which I know Superintendent Bradley, Ms. Arnold, wherever she is, Ms. Arnold and several others. I know Mr. Fidelli gave some advice on how to actually be able to fund the ATC renovation work. And that profession-based learning is, again, one of those, kind of chief feathers in the school community had in the work we're doing. So this is one thing, and we're lucky we've got both incoming board members here tonight. This is one thing that we are going to have to be taking some very serious looks at, because if this doesn't happen, then that means the up-center renovation work can't begin, and there is a timeline on the funds that we've got for that up-center renovation work. So this will be something we have to have some serious decisions made on, probably fairly quick, once we're back up to a full board strength of 5 members. I don't know if there are any other comments or questions from the board.
We do have to move forward with some of these projects because the up center, I would hate to think that we would just throw that money away.
I mean, that's $10 million worth of funds that the legislature said, here you go. It's not bonds, it's not local funds, it's $10 million, here you go, you have to use it, you have to use it within a set time period.
I'm hopeful. I mean, David and Amanda are smart people. I'm hopeful that they're going to see these things. Know that we have to do.
So the bus garage is unique. It's unique in that it's really, in order to do anything in Nelson County campus, you do want to look at this as a long-term solution. Would we prefer not to spend $3 million on a bus garage? Absolutely not. We prefer not to do that. But it's been uniquely located to be an obstruction on that campus for a very long time. In fact, it disrupts so much of the connections between Okeechobee Home, the high school, the ATC. It is a unique thing that's kind of been built around it. How old is that building? Steve, do you remember?
It was built about the same time as the high school.
So it was 69?
If I remember right, Ms. Martese has shared with us before that even some of the equipment in there is not built to work on, handle, or lift today's buses. And it's interesting that you were talking about talking with school staff members. There are a handful of bus drivers that, as this has started coming on the radar, I continuously get asked, what's the status of the bus facility? What are we going to be looking at? What are we going to have? And all I had to mention was, I understood Mr. Ward correctly. There's going to be a row of outdoor outlets that allow those block heaters to be plugged in. I think you just made their Christmas with that one design piece. So,
Yeah, I think they're, right now, obviously, from what everybody has seen, the buses there are some buses that can be parked formally, and then there's some that are just sort of willy-nilly in the
parking
gravel
gravel
areas.
and grass.
So this will be a lot more formal. You brought up the equipment, but we have gone through Mr. Casey, Mark Casey. He's given us a list of the equipment that he can reuse and relocate to the new facility. So he is being conscious of what is useful equipment that can just be moved. And then he's identified for us that equipment that needs to be given the new facility.
Commissioner Casey has always been a good advocate whenever it comes to being efficient and fun. So, if there are any other questions or comments for Mr. Ward on this particular item? Thank you, Mr. Ward. Appreciate it, sir.
Not one word now.
Yes, so 70 master plan for Nelson County.
This is also information. So really, Stevens' team proposed a potential shift, knowing that the cost at Nelson County High School's renovation would force us to evaluate a lien that was going to host the high school students. That was discussed over the last few months. As a part of that conversation, though, Steve has been talking about a master plan for the entire campus. So in 2008, 2009, the Thomas Nelson High School 160-acre plot of land was a master plan developed as a part of that process, which placed potential locations and roads for new schools down the road. And obviously, that master plan hasn't been realized, but it's there. It exists. The roads are there for a reason. In fact, you drive up there today and some things don't make sense because of potential master plan issues in the long term. There's never been a master plan developed for Nelson County campus in light of the 100 acres that we purchased in 2020. So that 100-acre purchase was with the assumption that it would allow us to consider future expansion of that campus. As we've gone further into the design process, Stephen said this to me multiple times, really has got the full profile of this master plan. And while it's just informational, it's something that provides larger context around why a master plan of not just this part of the campus, but the entire campus would need to be evaluated for really a 30-year conversation.
So this is just in the deck. This is the working plan that had been developed over a year ago for the campus to just begin to imagine how things could be coordinated on the site. But we've learned a lot since we put this together. The next, we now have land surveys of all of the campus property. We've got an understanding of the utilities, all the existing facilities in detail, and the infrastructure needs of the full campus. And then we've had those stakeholder group meetings that we've had for each of the projects, where we've learned what the goals are over the coming decades, not just for the current projects, but for everything around those facilities. So that's what we've learned since that original plan was put together. One of the primary reasons we're proposing that you undertake a master planning process is that a lot of the stakeholder comments we have heard, whether they have to do with extracurricular activities or track or athletics, there's a lot of it that is not part of the current projects, especially athletics, but other things as well. There's things that are not in the high school project, not in the F-Center project, but that the district needs to be thinking about now so that the work we do now doesn't preclude those things. We don't want to get in a situation where we've built something in the short term that would then cause you additional costs for redoing in the long term. So this is the campus as it is now, and we've kind of light, but we've begun to introduce some of the current projects onto this campus aerial. If you flip to the next one, that illustrates the property that will make up that long-term campus. And just one more time, the projects that we're talking about now are the Up Center, the high school, bus maintenance facility, but there are already conversations about use around those facilities and to the north that are not part of any current project. So what we're really proposing to you is that a big picture planning of everything will allow us to be most cost effective now, and we'll also make sure that you're making smart decisions about the future development of that campus. It will affect the relocation of softball and the potential that it could interact with baseball in the future. It will affect the Up Center project and both the building itself and the site around it, but also the heavy equipment playground that they're talking about for the heavy equipment program. It would affect the relationship between the Up Center and Nelson County traffic flow around the campus, and then all of those additional goals that I described that we've heard that are not currently being addressed. This is not a plan that would actually be by Studio Kramer. We have solicited a proposal from a planning group, a bigger picture planning group called SWT Design. The proposal is in your packet from them. They're used to looking at large-scale campus traffic, athletic, that kind of activity in detail, and they'll look at it relative to your topography. It's a very hilly topography, especially on the north part of that site. So what they're going to help us look at is how to best use that topography in a cost-effective way, so that you're not regrading everything on the whole site, but actually using the topography that's there. So as I described, we're proposing the master plan now so that it could start to happen over the next few months and then impact the current projects that are being developed on the site now. It will allow us to get some of the information out of the master plan and then integrate it into these projects so that they're done in a long view kind of way. That's it.
So one of the things that I hear out of that is sort of like a conversation about after the stakeholder groups discussed the Nelson County Community Campus, it was discovered that input from staff, from the families said, kind of started making us think, well, is just a renovation of a 50-year-old building the best use of money, or is it, let's say, and to not interrupt instructional time, or interrupt it as minimally as possible, I should say, is having that, I'll call it extension coming out toward the ATC being the newly constructed portion of the high school. That was only found out after having discussions with stakeholders. As it sounds like if you've kept having these discussions more and more, you've discovered a few more things that people are saying, if we're really going to be thinking long-term versus just short-term, let's try to do something simple like we have for the past 30 or 40 years, then let's look at this a little bit more in depth.
Yes, the groups at Nelson County in particular have been very organized, and their input has been impactful. It's definitely being integrated into all of the design decision making that we're making.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. So moving to 7F, this is just again an informational piece. I don't know, Superintendent Bradley, if there are pieces that you want to share with us on this agenda item that would be related to this as we move forward in the future.
So this is again an item that says that the board chooses to move forward on any project that cannot be paid in theory from current general fund monies or facility fund monies They have the authorization to issue bonds. This is informational only. If any project is moved upon at any time in the next week, 2 weeks, year, 2 years, it's the same process. Nothing more to say.
Okay. And then as far as the issue of bonds, it is actually through a separate entity here within the school district, which is the District Finance Corporation, correct?
So the board becomes the District Finance Corporation. Whoever is the chair of the board at that time becomes the chair of the District Finance Committee, and that's how that process works.
So moving into item 8, board calendar, looking at the 2023 board annual calendar, Superintendent Bradley.
Just a reminder, as we look towards January, while these dates in theory can change, this is a projected regular meeting schedule. Next regular meeting is January 17th at the Academy. The next meeting is on January 10th at the central office. So January 10th and January 17th. There's also February 21st, potential board discussions as part of the KSBA conversation in February as well.
So the January 10th would be a working session or a orienting session?
Yes.
And that one is central office, correct?
Yes.
So moving on to item number 9, board celebrations. So this is something that we have started to move to make sure that we have an opportunity to do. And actually, I want to kind of start off, I'm trying to think, Mr. Dickerson, is this year 5? So, one of the things that I've learned over the past 14 years is that each board member brings something very unique and valuable to the entire volleyball discussion. And I just want to take a moment to provide some gratitude to you, Jeff. Not only has it been in the questions you've asked, the discussions that have occurred, but just the big picture thinking that you've provided. At times, it's caused myself, hopefully other board members, to go, wait a minute, never thought about that. So I do want to share some gratitude with you, and thank you for the time and commitment that you've put in over the past 5 years. And maybe now you'll have a chance to spend a little bit more time on the cars and the music. So,
The automation industry's got my attention now. Hopefully, maybe I can help the ATC a little bit going forward.
So good segue to the
yeah,
ATC.
yes, that's right.
Good.
Oh,
The ATC put together a
well.
little for you and Ashley, and so we'd like to present you with that.
You are going to have to show the crowd to see the ATC medal. It has, I think it has does it light up? Oh, there you go.
I'm not like, I'll get some sleep.
So all that is green, I think it was all 3D printed with the exception of plastic, which is just ash.
Oh, it's not multi-line.
One more way. We'll just leave that.
No, leave it on the UK blue. What's that? The UK blue, not the U of L red.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I want to thank the staff, the faculty, and the leadership group, all our directors that have gone through a lot during my term. COVID, obviously, through everybody COVID. We've heard enough about that, but transferring into a more of a project-based learning, work-based learning, it's not the easiest thing. It's not what everybody's used to and accustomed to. And, it's not without its difficulties. So I am encouraged and I'm thankful that this body politic has stayed the course. I want to thank you for the study and the commitment to what we and stakeholders of community partners all over the county, focus groups, challenge teams, however you want to call them, have realized that in order for the students to find the love, and I'll quote Chuck Walken, one of my mentors, Senior Vice President of Wilson Bank. He says, if you can find the love, then you're really close to happiness, which is what we all want, right? And that's different then if you enjoy your job, you'll never work another day in your life. We're not talking about not working. We have enough of that in our society today. We're talking about coming to work with passion through the gifts and excavating those gifts that the big guy gave us. So I think this approach, I want to thank everyone that's been involved with the approach that's excited me to no end. And in fact, I've been rather jealous of the youngsters today who get the benefit and receive benefits from what will become. My son graduated in 2019, he was really on the forefront of some of the co-ops and being able to dip toe with this, that, and the other, and find out a little bit about what may not like or what I might like, to expose. And we're not saying that everyone's going to find it and be determined as to what they're going to do in life, but if you can narrow that scope, even just a little bit, to put it in sporting terms, it's going to increase, it's going to give them a higher percentage shot to find the love. So I challenge this board to continue and new members that vision, because it is, it's a little different, but it's so much more than what we've done for decades. And what's easy to do is what we don't. What's hard to do is to stick your neck out there and actually propose something to the community. And that's what we've done, and I'm rather proud of it. So I hope it continues. And the financial part of it, someone said it earlier, should have happened 10 years ago, and nothing true could have been said. I don't know who said that. It could have happened 10 years ago, and the cost wouldn't be the barrier. So and now we have a big cost barrier, but it still might not be the end of the world. So thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Well, I wish Ashley was here tonight, but, my 2 years with you on board has been nothing short of insightful of what you do to thoughtfully think about the processes and the decisions that you make always revolve around the students in Nelson County, not just here in New Haven, but you consider every student across the district. And your integrity is admirable. My same statement to Ashley, my 8 months of knowing Ashley, I'm amazed by the integrity that she has and also her thoughtfulness of students in Nelson County. She has been committed, as you have, to thinking about the student always, and every decision always goes back to what's best for the students in Nelson County. And having students still in Nelson County, I'm grateful for that. Because you guys have played a very valuable role in my students, my children's education in Nelson County, and that's why I'm grateful for the work that you all have done and continue to do. I wish, same thing, I wish my kids were going to benefit from the decisions that we're making today, but they will not. But I'm hopeful that students in our district right now that are beginning, like Harrison, will get to benefit from those decisions. But I'm so thankful for your dedication to our district and what you've done, what you guys have done as a board to get us where we are today.
Very gratitude.
I'll miss the loud car that you drive. What is that thing?
Chevelle?
Yeah, I'll miss that. And I thank you for your hard work, because it is hard work. People don't know how hard it is, but I want to thank you for that. And I've enjoyed the last 5 years. And I wish you well in your new job. It's really not new, but it is really new. You're still learning the ropes, I assume.
Payment's over though.
If you don't learn something new every day, I think that your day is up, down.
We learned a lot here.
Yes, learned a lot here, so I appreciate your work. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Jim.
Even Miss Diane's come along the way it sees, and I want to thank you and encourage you and challenge you to continue with the vision that you've been a part of, deep learning and beyond the last 2 years. You voted accordingly, so I hope you do it.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 10, we will need to convene an executive session per KRS 158.150 for discussion of student discipline and KRS 61.810 sub 1 sub K and KRS 156.557 sub 6 sub C for preliminary discussion of the superintendent's summit evaluation. So I would need a motion to convene executive session based upon those KRSs. Motion by Ms. Bowie, second by Ms. Berry. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.